On today's episode of the Sales Factor podcast, we have Alper He is an ex-sales leader turned co-founder at a company called Flowla. He talks about and advises salespeople every single day, solving problems, hashing out solutions. He's on a mission, right? And that mission is to change how the industry's journey of how people buy for the better. But before I give too much away, let's get into the show. Alper, what is the biggest challenge or biggest problem in sales that you're finding right now?
I think we're all feeling the pressure of a slowing economy, deal stalling, many stakeholders being involved in deals, and buyers are trying to navigate that situation just as much as we are. If you have a champion who needs to buy a product, you need to help them to buy from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about that, actually, I got pitched yesterday for a product, and they showed me all the benefits, everything, but I'm just sitting there going, do I really need it right now? Is this more of a nice to have, or will this actually drive ROI? But yeah, they just came to me straight from LinkedIn, which again, I suppose is how people are reaching out. But if that's such a big problem, then how do people get around that? Because again, it is such a big problem. People aren't buying. Everything's tightened up. So how do we get around it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a few things to peel there in terms of figuring out what the sub problems of the problem is. There's definitely that issue around nicety versus necessity. So people are trying to delay what they deem to be a nicety to a foreseeable future when things will hopefully look a little bit more predictable.
Oh,
There's also the issue of like very every market that you see today, every product, it's very competitive. So how do you stand
mm,
out from the crowd? How do you kind of create a differentiation when there's like probably 10 options to consider for every type of product? Say if you're looking for an outreach tool or if you're looking for some, information gathering tool or whatever, there's going to be 10 people pitching to you in 10 different directions and possibly in the same way. So how do you
mm,
stand out? How do you make sure that you have more share of mind, your voice is heard more or louder than others? That becomes
mm.
critical. So you have to cut through the noise. You have to show that what you have is better than others, but also be creative about doing that.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head there. It actually was a outreach tool that pitched me yesterday, so that's what made me smile and giggle. I was like, but there's a lot of them out there, right? It's trying to find out which one's going to be the best suitable for you, based on yes, nicety, necessity, and price, of course. But you said there about cutting through the noise.
Yeah.
So how do people cut through the noise? Because it is noisy right out there. Like I get pitched pretty much every single day on LinkedIn via messages, email. I don't even know how to find my emails, but they do. Um, Even though it's a brand new company. So how do you cut through the noise and be that company or that product, that service that people actually need?
Yeah. I think there's a bit of a travesty in the whole situation that sellers are pitching in any way they can, but they pitch
Right.
for a short amount of time, some spray and pray information that they assume the buyer wants, and then they
Mhm.
leave to the next. So they're not really closing anybody in the interim.
Yeah.
Whereas the buyer, so for example, I say the outreach tool or whatever, because honestly, we were trying to switch from one tool to another, and it
Mm,
took us 2 months looking through different tools, trying to figure out things and getting information. I'm trying to gather information from peers, from other professionals I speak to. I'm asking my SDR team to, talk to their peers,
mm,
what really works. And then to get pricing information from anybody, you have to book a demo. And then they're not giving you the information the way you need. They're being, a little bit like, playing the game, withholding information, building their narrative. So honestly, if there was a way for me to get the information that I want in, because I don't have time to
mm,
spend, trying to figure out, trying to discover. I don't want to spend more than a week or two
mm.
to discover a new tool. So if the information was available to me, was fed to me in the right time, in the right way, if people were available, and that was another thing, like I had to chase somebody 3 4 days like a seller when I wanted to get some information, which was quite ridiculous.
That
So I
is.
think there's definitely an element of how you sell and therefore how easy or difficult you make for the buyer to buy from you, it becomes really
Mm,
critical. Because while you're throwing a lot of unnecessary information at me, and I'm having a lot of overload, like cognitive overload, in terms of what am I going to look at, what am I going to read, am I going to read this on my Saturday or what, versus I'm actually not getting the information that I want from you.
mm. Yeah, I think you're right. Where so I've been in sales 10 odd years now, and that was always something that you would be pre-programmed with, of not giving the price or not giving all the information up front, because it was a seesaw of, okay, if I hit them with the price, then that's going to be an indicator whether they buy or not. However, they don't have all the value or all the information to warrant that price. So really interesting, and I think that's why people hold price back. Would you agree? Do you think that's like, are you
Yeah,
seeing people just not giving the price out because they want the pitch, they want the demo to really uncover the need?
yeah, there's, I guess there's always this possibility that you can increase the size of the deal by reaching out to some other, stakeholders in the conversation, whereas
Sure.
you're getting like this champion who is looking for one or two seats,
Mm,
versus you're trying to get to the real decision maker to figure out, is it a whole team thing, so you have all your band, all your discovery questions you have in your
yeah.
mind, this is going to be the sale of my life, versus the champion is just trying to, like, find a solution to their immediate problem. That generally happens for like smaller ticket size
Mm,
deals. Because all my life I've dealt with a lot of like enterprise complex sales and etc., where you have large ticket, that's a bit more different, where
mm,
decisions are generally made before you even talk. So the idea there is to influence all the other stakeholders, convince them that this is your product, which is why you have to jump on multiple calls, etc., etc.
mm,
And then what becomes really important is to empower your champion with the right information and the right narrative, because the first person that you need to win as an ally is obviously your champion, who
yeah.
has maybe three competitors in mind. They Googled, finally, they booked a call with you.
Mm,
That they're now trying to get the information that they need from you to be able to create that narrative themselves, because they don't initially trust you to do that narrative.
mm.
They think you're just a salesperson to pitch. Versus if you establish yourself as an advisor, that we're in this together, then I think you work as a team and start convincing the other stakeholders together, and it becomes a different thing.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's so powerful because if say we were meeting at a, I'll tell you what, say you were reading a newspaper, right, and you saw a film that said, go see this film, go watch this, go watch that, and then you had, you might watch it, you might not. Whereas if you had like a friend or someone who's a champion or someone
Yeah, of
recommending a
course.
film to you, like you're gonna like, likely go out and see it. So having that champion to vouch for you, I guess is, how do you get that champion though? Is it, and the other thing that came to mind, when just more the psychology side of it, of
Yeah,
actually giving the price out, because what was going through my mind is, if you're upfront with the price and information, and then someone books in knowing all that information, then there's no cloak and dagger. There's no, like, they've got all the information, and the likelihood of them buying may be a lot higher. Like, have you saw a lot, like, from you being visible and producing value to them and showing them the price pre-demo? Do you find that it's a higher conversion rate?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's how we are. I mean, we're still kind of a young company and learning everything.
Mm,
But I guess from the last 12 years or so I spent in sales, the one thing that I learned is sales is about emotions more than anything. Although
yeah.
there's a scientific way to approach the emotions. What I mean by that is this: often people will buy out of either fear or enthusiasm. So those two emotions might be in the driving seat or the motivations. So fear is obviously, like, it can be FOMO, or it can be fear of risk. Like, if
Mm,
I bring this product on board, is it going to solve others' problems, or am I going to be blamed for it? Like, I was speaking to a prospect yesterday, and the three users, the general way that we expand inside organizations at the moment is account execs, SDRs, sales managers. They love the product, they use it religiously, they hit a certain limit, and then they start involving the champion to say we need to pay for this, and then we navigate. So one user is religiously championing for us, and their CRO is like, is this absolutely a must? I don't know how this compares to the other product. How is the pricing, etc., etc. And the big conversation that we had yesterday was all around pricing, which was the competitors' pricing is not available. So they've been speaking to them for 3 weeks. They're still trying to work out the pricing, if between 1 to 10 seats or 10 to 50 or whatever, all that.
Mm,
Versus for us, I mean, it's all there. You go, and it's pretty simple. There's one simple price at the moment. Probably it's going to be an enterprise price at some point as well.
mm.
So I think now what um, some tools really do is create a lot of mystery. It's a bit like the phone companies, how they have like 20 bundles and you're trying to figure out what you need to buy, and it
Yeah,
creates a
yeah,
mystery. You end up being sold what you don't need. I think
yeah.
that's kind of what a lot of products are trying to do. I don't think that's a very a sustainable way of you can keep your pricing policy like that for 6 months to a year, but then when others are discovering, especially because there's so much competition, good stuff coming in, and I think the loyalty is something that you need to win over time and feed. It's not given. Therefore, you can churn at any time. So I think being upfront, honest, transparent, visible, these things establish a sense of enthusiasm for the buyer, because they know that they're not going into a situation which can be problematic for them. So you're removing the fear factor by
Mm.
making it easy for them to buy from you.
Yeah, and I guess what you're highlighting there is the buyer's experience or the buyer's journey, and giving them information and everything up front to then meander through and then have a champion coming in and actually getting them to a point where they're just like even that CRO, like, oh, right, what's the price? And if he doesn't know the competition, like, that's a big a big question mark, a big red flag. And come back in psychology, I think what I said earlier with, if you were to get a meeting with people to show them the product, they've got all the information, the conversion rate's probably a lot higher. But what would you say your buyer experience or journey is right now for your prospects?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think any buyer at the moment, especially in software sales, and software sales is kind of leading the way with some kind of software sales generally. People in those sales positions or buying positions, they're kind of early adapters. They're more prone to change. So I think buyer enablement is becoming a big topic for a lot of organizations. We were, up until like a month ago or so, the only way we were acquiring users was through a demo, and that was because of continuing to build the product and getting the feedback loops, etc. Since we opened up for free signups, the demos that I get are generally from people who are already aware of the problem, which is basically selling is a very complex process, and sellers feel the pressure of going into a complex sales process and introducing more friction and complexity to their buyer, which then stalls their deals. Some deals get lost because information is lost.
Mm,
Email threads are complex. People are not reading their emails. I have 2,000 emails in my inbox, etc. So by introducing all that friction, they realize they might be stalling deals. They might be lengthening the sales cycle. So
mm,
while the macroeconomic environment is something that you can have control on, how you sell and how you give your buyer a better experience is completely something that you can control. Which is why in the demos today, I speak about mostly buyer experience, buyer enablement. And there's really three things that buyers want from you as a seller. They want availability, autonomy, and authority. So what I
mm,
mean by that in a nutshell is availability is that they want all the information available to them. Even SDRs, if you think about today, they have the buyer is looking for a lot of information, but you can't convey all that in a message or two. Nobody's going to read your long email. However, they are wanting all that information. So how are you going to overcome that? You need to be able to share that information in an easy breezy way, which allows people to consume it at their own time, at their own pace, right?
mm,
So that's the first thing, availability of information. The other thing is autonomy. As I said,
mm,
like they want to be in control of how they are buying. So, for example, when I was trying to figure out what outreach tool to buy just a month ago, the one thing that I really felt miserable about was when I am trying to get the information about moving to the next step about my buying decision, I need to chase the seller now. I'm waiting for 3, 4 days. They're not reading
Mm.
their LinkedIn. Maybe they're like under resourced or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out if I can go to a Slack channel, if I can go to whatever other resource to get that. So in that situation, what you do is you cut my autonomy about my decision making. You, by
Yeah.
not providing what I need in the moment that I need, you're actually making it very difficult. And I think the at the root of it is, at the very first demo call, at the very first contact, if you're not clarifying what buying from you looks like, visualize it
Mm.
for your buyer, um, help them feel safe that we're working towards a timeline, a goal together, then it's going to be
Mhm.
really difficult, which is why I think mutual action plans are becoming more and more prominent in sales
Yeah.
today. And the third thing about authority is, as I said, like, buying is a risky decision for every
Mhm.
party involved. And when a champion is bringing a new product, they want to make sure that it's going to be used. Oftentimes I hear from our prospects, like, they used a competitive product or a product that they know from the past, but nobody
Mm.
was using it. The adoption rates were really low. So how is it going to be with us, etc.? So they want to feel safe. They want to be shown, cases, examples,
Mm.
told a story about how the future will be, when you enable them to use your product. But the reason for asking all those questions is not for themselves. They want to feel empowered, and they want to feel like they have the authority and credibility to go and pitch it to other stakeholders afterwards. Which is why
Yeah.
using a product like ours, like Flowla, is doing your pitch for you when you're not in the room, and providing all that information so people can consume at their own pace, as I mentioned.
I think it's wicked, mate. I think it is such a good product. I remember when we first had a chat, like you sent it, and I was like, "What is this?" Like it was a video, then it was this. All the information was there, and it was. And I think in the world of tech sales, SaaS, product services, whatever, there's just so many different products that all try and connect in. Where it seems like this is quite centralized, and it hits on those 3 points because you're absolutely right. I've had calls with SDRs, account execs, and literally they jumped on. They just about said hello. They were like 5 minutes late. Didn't even like, and that's fine. Whatever, get it
Yeah,
right. And then straight into like selling. Boom, this
yeah,
product does this, this, this. And I'm like, it's just like, yes, I want the information, but flip me, like, at least get to know me and understand what am I trying to achieve. Um, but I think you're right. In the world where there's, even every day, right, we've got, I think it's like 10,000 data sets hit at us from screens, from phones, from apps, from everything. And when I'm learning and doing self-reflection or self-learning and stuff like that, I do it in my own time and I take the time. I don't just watch like an hour-long video straight to
yeah,
finish,
yeah,
like 10 minutes here. So
yeah.
I
Exactly,
think,
at your own pace.
yeah, which is a bit different than. Do you think sales has changed now, or it's starting
Oh
to
yes,
change more to that model? Because like
oh yes,
2015, like I was still give me a list of 100 people, give me the phone numbers, and I'll just
yeah,
rattle through them. Well, now I think buyers have got like you said, the autonomy. And I think as a salesperson, if you can like position yourself where you're just bringing them down the garden path and like or down a corridor, closing the doors behind you as you go, answering questions, objections. That what you said there about whoever that seller is after 4 days of not responding, that's ludicrous.
yeah.
That's nuts. Like, do you know what I mean? Especially if you're chasing, it's showing that these are actions from a buyer that's looking potentially to buy. So, that's- so
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to pick those signals, I think, which is why you need the insight at the right time, and because there's all this message overload, as you say.
mm,
So that might be one of the reasons. But I think, one of the biggest struggles around selling today is, people are still continuing to sell like it's 2010, as you said. Like, if you
mm,
think about it, like, we're not taking it, we're not asking strangers to take our picture anymore. We're not saying, here is my camera, please take my picture. We're taking a selfie. We're
yeah,
doing it instantly. We have attention spans of 8 seconds. In the toilet, we're looking at Instagram. We're not checking, reading long emails from people with attachments and links.
yeah,
So everything has to be high pace, everything has to be available, and self-paced autonomy. I think there's definitely other elements that play to this. The generation is changing. The new generation, Gen Z, is very autonomous. They want choice,
Mm.
they want availability. They don't want to be dependent on anybody else, you know. And I think that kind of boils down to how I am a millennial, and we act as well. COVID has had a major role in how information has become available. I mean, I remember, like, for us, good sales was going to 20 sales calls, physically meeting the client
Yep.
every month. And this was not, like 100 years ago. It was 2018. This was the way, if you were in the office, you weren't appreciated. You have to be out and about, etc. Whereas now, the way we buy is very much asynchronous. Like, I was on a call a week ago with a founder who's a really brilliant guy, really great product, etc. And he told me at least 3 times, "Oh yeah, I can tell you in another call. Let's book another call. Let's book an like I can tell you a bit more." And I'm like, at the end of the call, I was like, "Dude, you don't have another call. You just have this call, and now
Yeah.
it's fine. You're kind of you have a little bit of share of mind now. What you have to do is nail it in your follow up. You have to share the information with me in a way that's available. I'm going to consume it at my own time. Don't chase me. Don't, like, come out of nowhere with meaningless, have you had a chance to look, or whatever. Like, if you
Mm.
send everything to me in a flow, I'm going to consume at my own pace. As you say, once I will look today and then on the weekend and whatever. And when I need it, it's there.
Mm.
So it makes
Mm.
everything much more easier, and I think it makes everything much more agreeable for everybody. And each time I consume the information, you as the seller, you will get a bit of insight into, how I'm consuming it, so you can follow up with me just in time rather than at random moments.
Yeah, and data and how long they've watched the video, have they watched it all? I'm sure all those data points are there to feed the SDR, the AE information as to when the right time is to reach out. Do do you think then marketing, because you mentioned about like autonomy and giving them information is the buy, like they should be the one in control. And I get it, and I'm fully on board with that. But do you think then it's more of a marketing to get your product, your service out there to then funnel people, the visibility into that? Because like we said, if we go back 2018, 2017, right? If we're just like bang, 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 phoning a load of people and trying to get through to people to make people aware of what we do, then are you seeing more of a marketing spin of how do we then push this so then people know who we are?
That's a great question. And I think that's one of those, top 5, 10 questions that every sales and versus marketing and revenue team conversation has: who has what. And we've all been in these calls with marketing where they're assuming their role is something and sales is assuming another thing. And then you're not getting the lead. So everyone is just like jumping and trying to create demand.
Never, would never.
I think it can be like, I don't want to, like, there's no one size fits all. And
Sure.
my observation from the experience that I'm having with myself and prospects and buyers or salespeople today is it's definitely becoming more marketing driven.
Mm.
But again, I think there's certain industries where, if you're selling like a wealth management tool, or if you are in education technology training, one of my jobs before this was, I used to work at MindGym, which is behavioral science-based psychology training. So you're
Okay.
trying to change the diversity and inclusion attitude of a whole, top 10 bank or whatever. So
Mm.
of course, do it everything at your own pace, etc., is not going to work for that situation when you're trying to change the attitudes of 50,000 employees in a bank towards
Yeah.
inclusion. Of course, you need the human involvement, etc. But I guess regardless of that ticket size, there's definitely an element of how people want to consume the information becomes more autonomous, which
Mm.
means for you as a salesperson to build that relationship over a long period of time, it can still be relevant, but there's a lot of things which are happening faster, at a faster pace. And attention spans, as I said, are 8 seconds long. People are now used to Instagram, TikTok videos, etc., which is
Mm.
why I think demand generation is moving much more from sales to marketing. We see it for ourselves today. Like, content becomes really important.
Yeah.
Like, I get maybe like outreach from 20, 30 recruiters or so every week.
What?
um,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
I
it's
was the only one.
I'm sorry to break the news.
What? Unbelievable. You're breaking my heart now. I
what
thought,
I what I respond to well though is I think I mean I respond to this well when establishing that relationship first. Like, what is in it for me is the question anybody asks when you get a reach out.
Sure.
So what is in it for you is what marketing has to deliver very quickly, and it can be a content, being part of a community, being part of
Yeah.
a relationship where we're having this nice conversation, and it has to start with that. It's no longer like salespeople just building relations over a long period of time. It's more marketing, mass, short attention spans. How do I grab attention? But how do I give something of value before I even have the right to pitch something?
Yeah. Like I've got about five thoughts going through my head right now, so I'm going to try and get them all out.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, I speak a bit too fast. When I
no,
tend to
no,
speak
no,
a
it's
lot of
good.
things and jam it
No,
into one.
it's great. And it comes back to the point I made earlier about like referrals or like building that relationship, and that's one of the things that I had a thought about was setting up different domains and going out and potentially using a outreach prospecting tool to garner a lot of data to then put it in and for me I felt it was like I got to the point I was like this is spammy.
Yeah, oh
Right?
yeah,
Like this is not building a relationship. This is not. This is just like old school recruitment, and I just got to the point. It's like absolutely not. Like this is not the direction. I would rather get to know you. So then, we may not even work together, right? We may do. Who knows, right? But if you know someone else that potentially is recruiting, and they're the relationships there, and I think it's more based on trust and actually getting to know people. And again, the value add of yeah, this podcast, or maybe I'm creating a network of people that can provide a lot more information to SaaS and tech companies, and it's more about how do I position myself. Then that coupled with marketing. Now, one of the big because I used to teach marketing and personal branding on LinkedIn, and right now I'm seeing a lot of trends about value add, which is great and it's good. I don't know if it gets the amount of attention that's required. What I
mm,
mean by that, like you can go down pain points and you can give advice and you can go bang bang bang, and that works and that's great. But what really, if you can couple that with relatability in
yeah, yeah.
terms of getting them into the mindset of, like, I put a post out the other day, and it was like the first line on LinkedIn was, it was like 6:30, and then someone turns around and says, "Half day is it me?" Because in sales, a lot of like that may majority of the time would have happened. Someone goes to leave at 6:30 on a Monday night, and someone swings around going, "Oh, it's a half day." And people can relate to that because they've been in that environment or they've been in that situation and then they connect with the post. Now, if you can do that coupled with value add information, pricing, or whatever, I think that's where marketing can really hit home with a lot of your prospects, your
Yeah, I think relatability is the first thing, which is why I think now everyone's preaching nail your ICP. So I was talking to an early founder the other day, and they kept asking me like, "What tool should we use? What should be in our tool stack, etc., etc." And I'm like, "Have you nailed your ICP? Like, do you know they're selling like an event? It's like an event marketplace for companies, basically. Like, if you want to do offsites and stuff, it's
right?
like a one-stop shop for all those things." And I'm like, who's your buyer? Like, is it the office manager? Is it the HR manager? And possibly in different organizations, your buyer will be different people. Therefore, you need to nail who will buy from you. Like,
Mhm.
will a Vodafone buy from you right away, or is it rather like the 100 people large startup who might be
Yeah.
considering to talk to you? Which is why I think relatability, as you say, and as you were speaking, that was the word that crossed my mind too, is so important. Like, you can't be all things to everyone. Like, you need to find your niche. You need to figure out one thing that one of our angel investors told me, and I really like it. Early days, early days isn't 6 months ago or so. They were telling me like, do Flola, we did our own fundraising with Flola. There's
Right.
recruiters who recruit with Flola because they send their job announcements, or they get applications through Flola, etc. But you can't be, again, everything to everybody, especially in your marketing. You have to be very precise. You have to know your persona, and you have to be in their shoes. You need to talk, like, the first thing in an email should read their pain point. The only moment when I'm going to actually entertain the second phrase is if I see myself in that first phrase.
Mm.
And you can't be like everything to everybody and nail that first phrase for everyone.
Yeah.
So relatability, spot on ICP persona. Yeah, those are the most crucial things, which is what we're trying to do.
Mm.
And yeah, I forgot what he told me. He told me was this: if you are a large river flowing, you're gonna flow very slow. But if you make the river narrow, then you're gonna flow much faster. So I
I like
think that
that.
yeah, it was really cool. Probably he said it
Yeah.
in a better way because English was his native language, whereas it's not mine. But you get the gist. I think that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to do. Like the better you nail the persona and you talk to their pain point and they feel it's about you,
Mm.
sorry, it's about them. Um, the more likely you will convert and you will have better success.
Yeah, absolutely. Inch wide, mile deep, as the
Okay, there
saying
you go.
goes.
I'll use this. I have to make a note of that.
Yeah, we used to. It was a term back from recruitment days where we had our own market. So I was a tech recruiter. I used to place developers, and purely because I used to be a dev beforehand, so I understand tech. I can still code. I can still build websites. That stuff. Um, Still edit videos like this, and uh, yeah, it was very much like all I did was place .NET, senior .NET developers, and then we had another team that done front end, another team that done BAs, another team. So everyone was like, okay, this is my market, and then this is the industry I'm in. So it's like an inch wide, and then anything in that ICP persona. But absolutely, I think what you said today really resonates with me, and I think it's a lot of valuable advice people can take away and start to think about one, the buyer's journey, giving them the autonomy, giving them the information, making sure they're not having to chase you and, you know, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But also then, like you said, there, a couple of with like not having to go after everybody because it does become a bit spammy. And how can you really understand or relate to everybody? You can't. But if you've got like a SaaS tech recruitment or tech businesses that are recruiting salespeople, then I know this specific people for me who I'm going to be recruiting for. So, and then you dig down even deeper into their pain points and what they do and what triggers them, and how can you actually help them? What information do they actually need? I think that's super powerful. So, I really appreciate your time on that. But just to, I suppose, wrap up the show, you've been in sales and co-founder of a business and done a lot in your career so far. So, what would you say is the biggest highlight in your career so far?
Yeah, that's yeah, that's a loaded question.
Hmm?
Uh, I think this moment is what I'm very proud of. Like
Oh,
everything that I've
thanks.
done
This
in
this
life.
podcast, right? This podcast, this particular moment.
Honestly, to be honest, yes, it's all part of the game because
Yeah,
being, I mean, I've always been a people person and always loved engaging in conversation with strangers who then become friends.
yeah.
And this podcast is definitely that because just being able to connect and learn something new is
Mm,
really cool. I always like that. I'm always very curious. You know, I'm the guy who's always talking to the Uber driver, like never the one who
mm,
puts the headphones on and like no chat. I'm always trying to figure out new things and learn from other people. So long story short, this moment, because everything that I've done in life has made it possible for me to, you know, be able to start this business from
mm,
my own pain point, from being able to do this today. And to be honest, what I'm really proud also is like um, as an immigrant who lived in different countries and who came to this country, I was on a work permit or a visa for a long time where I had to be employed by employers, which
mm.
is why I couldn't start my maybe entrepreneurial journey sooner. Maybe I wanted to do that. But anyway, like, I've kind of been there, done that, earned my right to, do my own thing and bring to market something that I think is very valuable. It's solving my own pain points. I used to hate being involved in complex sales where, nobody knows what's going on. Buyers are unhappy. We are trying to create clarity. We're all left in the dark. We're all being ghosted. Nobody's enjoying it. So instead of that, let's one single link where the buyer and seller can come together and close a deal. So being able to do something that I believe in, trust, and my own pain point, solving my own pain point is something that I'm really proud of. I'm building the team for this, of course.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think what you're doing. and especially with your team, like, because like I've started my business 5 6 months ago, and it's fun, it's interesting,
Is
but
it difficult?
yeah, like, the ups and downs of sales and recruitment's always fun. But yeah, I think what you're doing, um with the team, like team of 10 9 now, 10
Yeah, yeah, nine and a half, we'll say.
9.5.
9 out of 10.
The half is an intern, by the way,
We
for
have
anyone
an
else
we have
listening.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We have an intern who's actually, yeah, I think we should count him as 10 as well. So
Yeah, that's it. Good. So what I'd like to do just to wrap up the show is, for anyone listening, really interested in Flola and what you guys are doing, feel free. Do you want to just give it like a high level overview of the business? If you're hiring for people, push it out there. And if people do want to reach out to you or the sales team, like how should they reach out
yeah, they should send me a flow.
to you? Yeah, 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 do it.
No, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I try to post regularly 2 times a week. I'm always there responding, so they can reach out to me at alper@flolo.com or just ping me on LinkedIn. But honestly, a lot of inbound that I get, I tell them like there's this really cool story that a guy, an AE from HubSpot, who was trying to sell us HubSpot, he came and he said like, "This is awesome. I'm going to use it," and he's now using it, I think. So sometimes I tell people, if you want to pitch me via Flola. So you can do that too. It's free to sign up. You can give it a go yourselves and send me a very simple pitch. We do have an AI now in the product, so it creates your first flow.
Oh,
You don't really need to do much. So jokes aside, yeah, you can try that too.
awesome. And if people don't know Flowla and what you guys do, do you want to just give us like a high level view of, sort
Oh
of
yeah,
elevator pitch? Yeah.
of course. As I said, like I've been in sales forever, so we're trying to create that one single link where the buyer and seller come together. Because if you've been in sales, any kind of sales involves you share a lot of materials, a lot of conversations. You depend on email, you create Slack channels, WhatsApp people, and it becomes very spammy. So instead, we help you to put everything together in one single link, easy breezy. The buyer can consume the information as they want. They can interact with you when they have questions they ask. They bring
Mm.
their other stakeholders. Your pitch is already there. We are often hearing now like the CFO suddenly gets involved in deals. And
Right.
whereas you would have to convince them through like 5 emails over 5 weeks, now
Mm.
one single link, here you go, all the information is there, let's just expedite this thing. And as a result, it improves win rates and shortens the sales cycle. So yeah, give it a go and see for yourselves.
Sign me up.
Absolutely.
Love it. Listen, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks very much for your time today. And that is us.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
So that was an episode there with Alper. Great guy, as I'm sure you can see. Like, you can clearly see the dynamic of people buying services or products is changing, right? Some things that we used to do back in 2015, 2018, do they work anymore? Yes, yes and no. But is it changing to give the buyer more autonomy, all the information up front? And you can see it, right? Giving them the authority not to feel pressured into buying a product or service, having all the information up front, from price, from and then having it at their fingertips. I think that's super important, like centralizing everything so that they can look through the information at their own leisure. Rather than pulling resources in from every single place, having it in one place where anyone in the team, any decision maker, whether that be the CEO, CFO, or key champions within the business. So I'm super excited to see what they do this year. I know I'm going to be testing out the product, seeing how it works for me, and hopefully I get some good leads. But he give really cool, actionable advice there throughout the show. What you should be doing about understanding your ICP, understanding your prospects, and then being able to centralize everything, give everything up front, and just think about it. If you've given them the price, all the information, it's all centralized, and they're not being pressured into it, and then they book in a call with you, it's going to convert higher, right? Rather than just run of the mill, scattergun, grabbing 1,000 people and just trying to, email blast them. So, I really hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly did. and I will see you on the next one.